Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Rock and Pine Town. The title of my message this morning is Who Prepares Your Food? Or Who Provides Your Food? How we do enjoy food. Food, lovely food. See people, food. There's a saying, you eat with your eyes first. What am I doing? And then with your mouth. And who doesn't like chocolate? Some people live to eat, others eat to live. Okay. Smell a bra, and you can feel your taste buds almost tasting the steak. Cooking for church camps, which I did many years ago, was mealie meal porridge for breakfast, which actually was more lumpy than anything else, and then scrambled egg, which turned out very watery, ending with a slice of bread and jam and a cup of tea or coffee, all cooked on open fires for about 300 people. So you can imagine the kind of work that went into doing things like that. But nevertheless, everybody appreciated the food, the porridge, lumpy or not. Survey of eating habits are some very strange ones. Mayonnaise over everything, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, no matter what it was. Eating peas with syrup so they didn't fall off your spoon or your fork. Eating everything separately, where you put your peas there and your squash there, and your potato there and your meat there, and then you eat your peas, eat your squash, eat your potatoes. Some went even further and they put them on separate plates. Our daughter had a habit, she was not fond of vegetables at all, and she'd mash them all, and then she would spread them over the bottom of her plate. And then she'd say, "I'm finished, Mommy." So Mommy used to scrape them up and say, "Just eat that." "Okay, Mommy." So we were both happy. Table manners, wash your hands before coming to the table. And don't sing at the table. Say your please and thank yous. And you remember the days when you didn't like your vegetables and you used to slip them under the table to the dog's open mouth waiting. And then you'd think, Mom never saw, but Mom didn't, just manage to keep quiet. And don't talk with your mouth half full. Ken always says, fill it first. Don't leave the table until everyone is finished or ask to be excused. In China, I believe burps are welcome. It shows you've enjoyed the food, and also shows, among other Latin countries, if you eat everything on your plate, they think you're still hungry, so they give you more food. You'll never find a book in a bookshop or anywhere. I don't think one has ever been written about surviving starvation. But you will find hundreds of books on proper nutrition, more than hundreds of books on how to lose weight, hundreds of cookery books, chefs who specialize in different aspects of food, and plenty of restaurants, coffee shops, takeaways, shops that display food like you want to buy everything. You've got cereal in boxes, you've got milk and cool drink in cartons or glasses. There's just so much. And if you go into a supermarket, 90% of it is food. And it's also displayed. And then they've got those special chocolates as you go out and you pay. And of course, the little ones always think, Mommy, can I have a chocolate? And so it's very difficult. And then you go to the frozen food, and you've got everything frozen. Everything. There's nothing. Even frozen foods for dogs. And it's all with the thought out labels to encourage you to buy. And we buy for tomorrow, we buy for next week. And then in the time of looting, we would buy. It was panic buying because we didn't know if we were going to have anything tomorrow or the next. We don't have bread, we don't have milk, we don't have. How much do we spend on food, on buying, preparing, and eating? And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But Luke 11 verse 3 and in Matthew 6 verse 11. It tells us, give us this day our daily bread. Not give us the caviar, the delicacies, the chocolate donuts, the chocolates and more chocolates. Not for next week, and we don't ask for next week or next month. We ask for today. Daily bread, give me today what I have need of. And if you define bread, I don't believe they meant just bread. It's everything necessary to live our lives, including food, healthy bodies, home, families. This encourages us to talk to God about the necessities of life. He may give us luxuries, which is very lovely, but certainly the necessities. Would God give the stars, the moon and stars, their light, or the birds their songs, or the fruit, no trees, no fruit, or the flowers, no color? Can you imagine just a black and white flower or a black flower? We don't have to prise open God's hand and just take a few crumbs. God gives us abundantly. God is not mean with his giving. In 1 Timothy 5 verse 8 tells us, if a man does not feed his family, he is worse than an infidel. And how much more will our Father in heaven care for his children? Will God enlist us in his army or send us out as soldiers with no provision? Having said that, God provides, and we need to learn to take, because sometimes we are so independent. We can do it, and we can do it our way. But God says he is there. He's providing for us. We become very self-sufficient. We become very independent. And nowhere in the Bible does God say that his store cupboard is empty. Nowhere in the Bible does he say the doors are closed to his cupboard. There's nothing left for you. Give us this day our daily bread. Can you imagine a child coming in and saying, give me my bread? Seems rude. No, please, no, may I have. We have already, it's the Lord's Prayer, called God our Father who is in heaven. We've already said, hallowed be your name. We've already said, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We have already acknowledged God as our Father. We have acknowledged God's greatness. Then we ask for bread, and the purpose is not to change God, but for God to change us. Hallowed or holy is your name. Our hearts warm and burn within us as we consider and look into the holiness of God. Jesus in John 6:48 says, I am the bread of life. He was saying, I am the sustainer of life. I'm the bread of life. Whatever you need for life, I will sustain you. We don't walk into God's presence and demand delicacies, but we do sit out, nor do we sit outside the door and hope a few crumbs will come our way. We come and we talk to him, and we take our place at the table of God. And gradually trust God to give us our daily bread. And gladly, I should say, trust God to give us our daily bread. Whatever you want me to have is all I want. Give me the bread that is suited to my needs. Some days the plates runs over with God's keeps bringing and more and more and more food, and we have to loosen our belts and we have to move away from the table because it's like a 6-course meal. It's a promotion, it's an increase in salary, it's a privilege, it's a friendship, it's a gift, it's a lifetime dream come true. Times we push ourselves back from the table and are amazed at all the blessings. And days when we need to eat broccoli and more broccoli, or just dry bread. Days of tears, days of sorrow, days of disappointment, days of discipline, days when wonderful plans haven't worked out, days of retrenchment, break in a relationship, And then if there's fruit, vegetables, or chocolate on a plate, what would you choose? I don't think many of us would choose the vegetables. Vegetables are bland, fruit is sweet, chocolate is delicious. Okay. Nothing. Then there's days when we sometimes just want cookie day, everything to go well. And then days when we just have carrots, 24 hours of carrots, because we need the strength that they give. And God knows we need strength for that day. And though the portion is hard to swallow, it is for our own strength and our own goodness. Next time your plate has more broccoli than apple pie, remember who prepared it and gave it to you. Next time your plate has a portion you find hard to swallow, remember Jesus found his portion hard to swallow and asked God if he could take it back and that he needn't do what was ahead of him. And God said, it's my will. And so Jesus took that and he did what God had commanded him to do. And sometimes we find what is given to us so hard to swallow, but talk to God about it. Jesus did in the Garden of Gethsemane. Cup of suffering so terrible, so terrible. With God's help, he did it. And so with God's help, you can do it too. A sociologist accompanied a group of climbers on an expedition, and amongst other things, he realized that there was a distinct difference in those climbers between the cloud cover and the clouds not covered. The climbers were energetic and cooperative when the peaks were uncovered and they had them in sight. And when the grey clouds covered the mountain tops, the climbers were depressed and didn't work well together. The same happens to us when we take our eyes off Jesus. There's a bounce within our eyes are focused on the dirt beneath us, and we grumble at every crevice and every rock that we have to cross. But when our eyes are on Jesus, we have a bounce to our step, and we're happy and we're glad because our eyes are fixed on Jesus. In Colossians 3 verse 1 to 2, Paul is saying to the Colossians, if you were raised with Christ, seek those things that are above, where Christ is. Everything he's seating at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above and not on things on earth. And so often, and the news lately has just been terrible with the volcanoes, the earthquakes, and we know the COVID, and people that we know passing away, people that we know are in hospital seriously ill. We had news the other day of someone I know, someone I've known for many years, has passed away. And our hearts cry. And we are so devastated. But we need to keep our eyes on Jesus. And that we can't buckle. Because Jesus, when he says when he comes, will he find faith? Will we be standing? We'll be standing for him. So who prepares our bread? Who prepares our daily food? Give us this day our daily bread. Is it a relationship we rely on? Is it the programs on TV? Is it the magazines? Is it the drugs? It's the alcohol? We know people who do things like that. Is it the food in the fridge when you just don't know what to do, or you're fed up and you think, okay, let's go and find what's in the fridge? Our work at home, our family, what we do to feed on mostly. Only God can give life. Only salvation comes through the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. And only through him do we have love, joy, peace. They all come from God, all of them. And that's what he will put on our plates when we need that kind of thing. He is our fortress. He's our shield. He's the breastplate of righteousness. He's the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation. And only by grace do we stand. In Ephesians 1, verse 19, and I'm going to read to the end. And who is the exceeding greatness of his power towards us who believe, according to the working of his mighty power, which he worked in Christ when he raised him from the dead and seated him at the right hand in heavenly places, far above all principalities and powers and might, dominion, and every name that is named, not only in this age, but also all that is to come. And he put all things under his feet and gave him to be head over all things to the church, which is his body, the fullness of him who fills all in all. Lost my place then. Throughout his ministry, there are many examples of Jesus' authority. Demons into pigs, blind, dumb, the fish that came out of the sea and into the boats, the 5 loaves that he had the authority to extend to feed 5,000. One is on when they were at sea and this storm came up suddenly and they weren't prepared for it. And I want you to imagine yourselves in that boat, the waves crashing down over the boat, the wind blowing. Can you imagine yourself on that boat? Waves washing over you. You're soaking, your hair's wet, your eyes you can't see because of the water in them. You're shivering with cold and with fear, and your hands are clinging to the mast. And above the noise of the storm, you hear screams and prayers. Then you think, oh, there's one pair of hands missing. Jesus, where is he? He's not clinging to the mast, nor is he clinging to the end of the boat or to the edge of the boat. He's not even hanging over the boat. Where is he? Where is he? And they found Jesus asleep. Asleep at a time like this. A lot of emotions go through you. Really, Lord, at a time like this, you're asleep and I'm in desperate need. I'm in the storm. Can't you feel the waves and the wind? Aren't you wet from the water? Then you say, Teacher, don't you even care? And how often do we say that when things are going wrong? Lord, don't you care? I'm perishing. I don't know what to do. The storm that made the disciples panic made Jesus drowsy. The fear that kept them awake let Jesus sleep. And the boat that was like a tomb to them because they thought they were going to drown was like a rocking cradle to the Lord. How could he sleep in a storm? Simple. He was in charge of it. And there's times in our lives where we wonder, how can Jesus not do something? But Jesus is in charge. Jesus has that authority. Give me today our daily bread. Jesus is in charge. He has that authority. And we need have no fear. We can rest in Jesus to supply every single thing we need per day in our daily bread. Amen.